morning, sir.
Good
Good
morning,
morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Sarthak, you're from Gurugram
Yes, sir.
for a long time or recently settled?
Sir, for the past 12 years.
12 years. Otherwise, where do you come from?
So I come from Old Delhi. I was born in Old Delhi,
Where?
very close to Jama Masjid.
Where?
Um,
Where
sir,
in Jama Masjid?
so just next to Gali Gulyan, if you're familiar with that.
Gali Gulyan.
Yes, sir, that's where I live.
That is on towards Chowdi Bazar.
I mean, yeah, it's close to that area. It's close.
Where is it? Tell me, where exactly is it?
So the pin code is 110006.
Naya Sadak.
How to go to Gali Gulyan?
How to go to Gali Gulyan? Okay, so if you're traveling by metro, you get down at the Red Fort metro station.
No, we have reached Jama Masjid. From Jama Masjid, how do you go?
Okay, if gate number 3 of Jama Masjid is behind you,
The Dariba side.
again, it's kind of in the middle of those two things. I mean, Chavdi Bazar is towards this direction, Dariba is towards this side.
Dariba is gate number 3.
So yeah, you need to go. If you go to Dariba from gate number 3, then you'll have my home on the left side.
From Dariba, if you start walking towards Dariba from gate number 3,
Yes.
you're
पहले तो नई सड़क आएगी ना, उसके बाद दरीबा वाली रोड
नई
आएगी।
सड़क तो पीछे की
पीछे
तरफ
तरफ
है, तो वेस्ट में है,
जी।
तो नॉर्थ की तरफ है, आप नॉर्थ ऑफ जामा मस्जिद.
Yes, I'm not familiar with this direction. Now,
Okay,
but
you still have a family there?
no,
No,
everyone is in Gurugram.
everyone. So were you were in some kind of a business?
So my father used to have a factory first of all, and then he had a business, but then he started shipping.
So how long has he been in Delhi wala
So he's been a Delhi wala for all his life until he came to Gurugram.
until he came to
Yeah.
Gurugram, Acha, Delhi?
Yes.
And where did your family come from originally?
So my mother is from Ambala in Haryana, and my father's mother is from Western UP. My father's mother
And father's father?
he was from Delhi as well.
Delhi. So you are a Delhi wala like me.
Typical Delhi.
I
wala.
belong to Delhi for
Same
500
area,
years.
Same area.
Same area.
Oh, where did?
Matia Mahal.
Oh, wow, that's excellent. That's very close.
You're very close.
Yeah.
It's the opposite, the other side.
Okay.
Gate number 1 is Matia Mahal, gate number 3 is your Gali Gulyan.
Right.
Very
right.
good. Why is it called Gali Gulyan?
So first of all, it's a gully. That explains the first part. Second part, I'm actually not very sure why it's called
What
Gulli.
does the word gul mean?
So
Guldasta? If I
yes,
give you a
yes.
clue.
So it means flower. It means
Alright.
to flourish. I think that's the metaphor for that.
Yeah, okay. Now you have mentioned empirical research in education. Can you tell me what was that empirical research?
So that was my MPhil thesis, in which I looked at competition between private schools and public schools in rural India. It was inspired by my kind of understanding over there in the UK that private schools are less popular than public schools, while it's the opposite case in India. And I wanted to see that all this mushrooming of private schools we have seen in the past 10, 15 years, whether it has had any impact on the teacher absenteeism rates in the local public schools.
So where did you do this study?
So this was based on secondary data using India Human Development Surveys 1 and 2. I didn't collect any data of my own, and I was mainly analyzing the data already collected.
But this data came from where? Which place?
So all over India.
All over India.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and what was the conclusion?
So I didn't find any positive effects. I found that teacher absenteeism wasn't increased after a private school came up, which was my initial hypothesis. I suggested a few conclusions as to why that could have happened, but ultimately I think this area is ripe for further research
Very
as
good.
well.
And you mentioned you write op-eds.
Yes, sir.
When is the last op-ed you wrote and where was it?
Sir, I wrote, I think, 3 weeks ago in the Indian Express on the One Nation, One Ration Card scheme.
On what?
One Nation, One Ration Card.
One nation, one ration card. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Sarthak, I'm curious about 2-3 things.
One second, sir. Did you support the idea?
One Nation, One Ration Card?
Yes.
Absolutely, I did.
All right. I'm curious about your career trajectory so far. You started with the World Bank. You went to a consultancy in England. I'm not asking you what motivated you, but the point is probably the London option was better. You could continue your MPhil and add to your academic arsenal. But then when you switch to civil service, you are opting out of a career where you seem to have been doing very well and preparing yourself for maybe a job in international civil service rather than Indian civil service, maybe joining World Bank, maybe joining IMF, maybe joining MC, multinational corporation, MNC, as an economist, and maybe have a career which satisfied you intellectually, financially, globe-trotting, something like Ruchir Sharma's.
Yeah.
Not everybody has to be a Indian administrative service person.
Yeah.
So what brings you back, and how do you think that would that be satisfying to you? You know.
So there are 2 or 3 things. First of all, after living abroad for some time, I realized that I really enjoy living in India, and I would prefer that over living in London or the US. Secondly, I realized that there is already so much of research, so much of know-how on what needs to be done in developing countries, what are the ways in which we can improve outcomes, that I felt at the margin it is probably better to try to implement some of that research on the ground. And I feel that apart from my academic kind of credentials, I'll also be able to have some kind of leadership ability to implement those outcomes on the ground.
One last methodological question: as a teacher and a researcher, your MPhil was, you said, an empirical study. How reliable can be an empirical study which relies on secondary observations? And also generalized at a scale where you say all India picture, and where the basic flaw is that the words terminologically are used differently. A public school is a private school there, and a private school is a public school here.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, this goes back to the days of Eton, Harrow, and the Macaulay system. So, and you know, and there are different kinds of boards, state boards. We'll not get into that. I'll just pass you on to.
Thanks, sir.
Of course, there's so much to ask about all the work you have done in the field of research and coordinating and but I'm going to come back to your roots. So you from Delhi moved to Gurugram. How would you link Gurugram and ancient Delhi's history? What is the connection between Gurugram? Why the name Gurugram? And how it is in Delhi? What was that era here? And any landmark in that part of Delhi where you stayed?
Ma'am, one of the cities of Delhi was Indraprastha, which was supposed to be Pandava's kingdom. And then
one of the cities? I mean, how many cities are there in Delhi?
I think they're called 7 cities in Delhi.
No, they were all cantonments. Even Lal Kot was a cantonment,
Okay.
and even Prithviraj Chauhan's cantonment, Pithora, and everything was a cantonment. City was only 2.
Okay.
Indraprastha and New Delhi.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Next.
And the name Gurugram itself, it comes from the fact that Yudhishthir or the Pandavas gifted these villages to Guru Dronacharya, who was their teacher, and that.
Sorry. How can Pandavas gift to them? Pandavas were pretty young and he was their teacher. So he came and settled there before that.
You're saying Guru Dronacharya settled in
Dronacharya.
Gurugram.
It
Dronacharya
was his ashram.
It
where
was
the
his
Pandava
ashram?
princes, adolescents came to learn archery and other.
and it was gifted by his their uncle, you should say, not. Okay, now
Okay,
tell me any landmarks in Delhi which you can connect with Indraprastha and Gurugram.
Ma'am, Purana Killa is one place that is.
Can you name one historian of medieval times who has very clearly mentioned that Indraprastha in this in his book?
I can't remember any names at the moment, ma'am.
Okay. So what is about Purana Killa that is linked to Indraprastha?
Purana Killa, that is?
Linked to Indraprastha.
Ma'am, it is believed that the ruins remain below the current Purana Killa, and it was settled above what the initial ruins were. Obviously, Sher Shah Suri, Humayun, other people.
Is it believed or excavations has thrown up certain evidence? Are you aware of excavatory evidence which supports this hypothesis?
Sir, I know that there has been plenty of research on this, plenty of excavations to try to see if those conclusions are solid. I'm not familiar with the result, if it has proven that without doubt that Indraprastha did exist underneath those.
Have you heard of painted grey pottery?
Yes, sir, I'm familiar with the concept.
So you're not familiar with the different excavations that happened. You're not familiar with Aine Akbari, Abul Fazal mentioning how Himanyu came and he settled on Purana Killa and certain. because his focus is actually economics, so history is difficult.
But I enjoy history, but
But you should know about your own city where you have grown up and you have known. And in the area of Nili Chhatri, where the point where the Rajputs renovated the temple where Yudhishthir ka, Abhishek hua tha.
Acha.
Okay. Any other landmark of ancient Delhi that you can think of? In Mehrauli area?
Ma'am, you'll have the Qutub Minar.
Qutub Minar is a later. What
Yeah.
was the original, in that area, what are the other landmarks which are pre-Mughal and pre-Sultanate? You're not familiar with the Iron Pillar, you're not familiar with Yogmaya Mandir, you're not familiar with Lal Kot, you're not familiar with that dam.
No, it's surprising. I've been to Lal Kot very recently, but it completely slipped from my mind.
You remember the Iron Pillar there?
Yeah.
What period does that date back to?
I think it's from the Gupta period.
It's much before the Gupta period. You have to relearn your history.
Okay.
I think I've asked you.
Mr. Sarthak, when I look at your depth, the economics is writ large all over it, whichever page I go. The economics all the way. In the recent times, as you know that in our country, the economic activity, especially I'm talking of the rural agricultural economy, the most of the activities are scattered all over country, and many developmental economists for such a long time thought that one area that is probably not much explored is the area of cooperatives. Probably that could provide the kind of boost to the economic activities of the scattered agricultural activities which the modern market cannot provide. In that context, do you think that the cooperative movement has still some potential to deliver the goods and to improve the lives of the people who are in the minor economic activities, especially agriculture related?
So the cooperative movement has been incredibly successful as far as milk is concerned. Even in other sectors, some sectors like sugar, for instance, it has made some inroads.
But at the same time, it has also brought in a lot of corruption, cartelization, and the political interference, and then the power brokers have entered into that. So don't you think that, especially the sugar industry, especially I'm talking about it?
Yes, sir, that is true. There are very strong links between politicians and these kind of agents, even in Maharashtra, for instance. And I think there are ways to address that. For instance, the center giving RBI the mandate to look at urban cooperative banks, I think that was a good step. And even other steps can be taken to make sure that corruption and these kind of issues can be weeded out. But by and large, I think I am optimistic about the prospect.
No, I'm at large, I'm talking about it. Do you think that it is still one potential that is still unexplored and we need to expand it, and it requires a great deal of intellectual investment?
Yes, sir, I would agree with that statement.
Recently, for example, the new ministry that has been created, Ministry of Cooperation, how do you look at it? Because there is some kind of the controversy that relates to the constitution, that it belongs to the state list, the scheme of the things, the way it is in the constitution.
Yes, sir, I'm familiar with that debate. I think if the cooperative ministry can, instead of trespassing on states' interest, focus more on coordination, making sure various activities.
Is it really trespassing?
I'm sorry, sir?
Is it really trespassing? After the Supreme Court's the clarification, or rather the judgment on the 97th constitutional amendment, things are clearer.
Yes, sir. The Supreme Court has struck down certain provisions that it thought that where the parliament was overreaching. I think just forming a ministry doesn't make it unconstitutional or trespassing states' interest. What is more important is what kind of actions the government takes going forward, and those will be closely watched.
That is where we have started our discussion. That do you think it is unexplored areas are there? There is a potential, and the central government can possibly bring in a lot of logistics input, investment, management, and whether it is welcome or not. Or do you think it is blatant interference looking at the scheme of the things of Indian Constitution?
I do not think so. It is blatant interference, because we have seen the center playing a major role in a lot of issues that are normally left to states, even in the constitution and other lists. So I think this kind of coordinating feature of the center is very important in our scheme of things. And obviously, it will have to work closely with the states.
One last question. You have spent substantial part in, for example, in Britain. For such a long time, it's everybody knows that the issue of the racism. But then when the Rasmi Samant, the kind of experience she went through, she was about to join as an Oxford Union president, but she gave up. And she made a statement, just single word, that racism is more overt in Oxford campus. More overt. O-V-E-R-T,
Yeah.
and this word really hit me like anything. More overt.
So that wasn't my experience, certainly. I felt Oxford was a very welcoming, very liberal place, and it welcomed people from all.
So Rasmi Samant's experience was completely
Not at all.
the way the some of the liberal voices would put it was kind of a put on.
Not at all, sir. I do not know her experience. I do not doubt that such a thing could have happened because,
But
unfortunately,
she made headlines all over the world, and how possibly could have you missed her plight in Oxford?
So I personally, when I was in Oxford, I said in my experience there wasn't any overt racism at least. But I do not doubt the fact that she might have experienced something, and that certainly it was a major disappointing kind of experience for all of us when we saw what happened to her. And I think the authorities also are investigating back in Oxford as to what happened.
If I were to say, you were sounding like an apologist for Oxford.
Not at all, sir. I mean, I will be the first one to criticize Oxford if it is doing something wrong, especially on the issue of racism. And I was, as I said, I was appalled when I read what happened to Rashmi
Yes.
Sawant. And I'd be kind of keen to see.
Thank you.
Very good.
I think Sarthak, you are obviously on paper, you are an ideal candidate. You have been there, done that, seen everything and come. But I do feel that there are chinks in your armor. When you are questioned about your heritage, even if you left 12 years ago, the Purani Delhi, your coordinates of Purani Delhi needed to be a lot of refreshing. And if you are an old Delhi wala generationally, there is a family memory, family history, which is, even if you stop living in old Delhi, come back to South Delhi, go back to, go further down south to Gurugram, there are family traditions which keep mentioning. Kahan kya tha, khane ki jagah kya thi. You seem to be fixing yourself with metro station and a rickshaw ride inside and 10-step this. I'm still not comfortable with the way you described your house's position to the Honorable Chairman who belongs to that area, maybe on the left-hand side, maybe on the right-hand side. We are on the opposite sides. See, there is a mirror parity problem. If you say left, it is my right. So there have to be geographical coordinates about what you are describing, which are landmark oriented. आपने गेट नंबर 6 कहा, उन्होंने गेट नंबर 3 कहा. So गेट नंबर 3 और 6 के बीच हमारे लिए वो था. She was confused about the नई सड़क, which is westwards. It's not a question of you are fumbling on that. आप 12-13 साल की उम्र तक वहाँ रहे थे, and you obviously have gone to Purani Delhi again for as a tourist, maybe, let's say, not as a resident. So, and the question about Gurugram was handled badly. It is, when you say the Pandavas gifted it to Guru Dronacharya, it's quite not there. Even the Amar Chitra Katha, familiarity with Mahabharata would say, not the boys.
Your father will pay the fees, not you, na, when you go to school.
Yeah.
So that's the situation there.
Okay.
The fees is paid by the father in kind, gift him the ground. So that's fine.
Okay.
I also think that you say you love reading history. Primarily you are focused. You are a brilliant student in economics and economic policy and so on. But the moment you say I'm interested in history, not to know pottery, and which is conclusive evidence carbon dated, not of Mahabharata specifically, but of that period. Of that period. So it just more or less coincides with the dating of Mahabharata on other grounds. I mean, we are not talking of Mahabharata, the myth, legend, Gita, sermon, no. A point of time when this place was inhabited and there was a large enough settlement there to be a capital. So that's the kind of thing which I was a little disappointed, if I may say so, because a person of your intelligence is, I'm happy the way you responded to the Oxford thing, because I think the Honourable Member was pushing on the thing that, but your experience may be different from her experience. And I would not say that you are being an apologist, but I think that's the kind of thing which is, you are grilled to respond under pressure, whether you can hold that pressure and answer. But that flaw about the lack of knowledge, like you said, I went to Lal Court and it slipped my mind. So nothing is supposed to slip your mind at critical occasions. It's not like the Karna's curse. At the moment of the crucial battle, you forget your astras.
When is your interview?
So 20th August.
20th August.
Plenty of time.
Right. Yeah, you are a brilliant candidate, no doubt. Very first attempt, and for obvious reasons.
Expected.
Yes. Yeah. And as my colleague pointed out, even after several questions, I cannot read Gali Gulyan the way you have described it. Right. So you need to be more familiar with Old Delhi, because Old Delhi is an interesting subject in itself. And being a Delhi wala of 3-4 generations is quite an important part of your history.
I could have asked you about the Indraprasth school, the Jama Masjid.
Yeah.
My
So,
yeah.
yeah.
You studied there?
No, my bua, all my father sisters went there.
That's what I said. There is a family memory.
Yeah.
घर पे तो बात होती होगी ना यार.
जी sir. बिल्कुल.
No, you are very smartly dressed, no doubt, because obviously you don't need any coaching. A smart suit, white shirt, good tie, long enough to reach the belt, lace, boot, shoes. That's all very fine. Only thing is, we have a problem, unlike other coaching academy. Have you attended other mock interview?
I've attended a few.
No. Has somebody told you to keep your arms like this?
I had a habit of using my hands a lot, and everybody advised against it. So I tried to keep it.
Now, is it possible that you put your
Yeah.
hands like this and do not fidget?
Yeah.
If you can do it without fidgeting, either this or locking your fingers or like this, so they're more relaxed. And when you see the CD, and then you can rehearse also, you will find this is a more relaxing position. This is an unnatural position, right? So looks a little, because it's an informal conversation. So that is about your appearance and dress. Maybe I don't know what to comment about your hair. If it
I
has
am
a-
Haircut. I'll get a haircut.
You are a bit differently groomed than for a civil service interview.
right?
I'll get a haircut.
So you look like a rock star, but that is not what they're looking for. Right?
Okay.
So, and if you're going to go for a haircut, then do it within the next 2-3 days. There should be a gap of 8-10 days, otherwise you feel awkward.
Yeah.
The day you have your haircut, that day and 2 days, you look awkward. Even your friends say, "Oh, balgat why kya hai?" So why do they know? Because there's something odd about you suddenly.
Yeah.
So you do that. 2 things we'll advise you, that everything we asked was from your DAF, and everything which they will ask you will be most probably be from this only. So pick up your DAF, and we give you homework. Speculate, identify 100 possible questions which can arise out of it. All right. So the more you identify, the better prepared you will be. All right. So that is one. Secondly, from the newspapers, to be on top of current affairs, which are your newspapers?
I read the Indian Express mostly.
Indian Express is good. Do you take any notes from the newspaper? Now, from today, start a diary. 5 items a day. You must write your notes. 1 item, 1 page. All right. So because it has so much of knowledge and we wish you to know. So take your notes from today. So these 2 things will prepare you a lot. Do you have any questions?
Not really. No.
Not really. Good.
Good luck to you then.
Don't you
Just
think that
wanted
it's
to
a
inform him that
very
it is-
formal
sorry.
occasion, and one should avoid, at least in India,
Again, his hands are back there.
the received English probably has got a lot of respectability in Supreme Court, UPSC. So at this colloquial expression of "yeah," that was very pronounced. If you could replace it with that "yes sir" or "yes madam."
Even the wow, you belong to the same neighborhood. Oh, that's great. Is probably a preferred alternative.
Many colloquial expressions I was noticing, that was usually, we use it in slightly informal situations, and it's a very, very formal occasion.
Just you said Shesha before Humayun. Humayun came before and then came Shesha.
Yeah.
Just remember the sequence.
Shesha Suri is also something, I mean, sorry to take this forward, but Shesha Suri, I'm writing something on him that I think he's probably one of the finest economic minds that has come to India in the past 2,000 or 3,000
It's
years.
been said before. It's been said before that the Akbar's land reforms came out courtesy Shesha Suri.
Yeah.
Elementary school textbooks have this original idea.
Right.
You are probably reinventing the wheel in this.
No, I'm not saying it's an original idea, but what I'm trying to
No,
do.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.